Trinitron by Sony. There's only one Trinitron. Sony introduces Trinitron XBR. More than a brand, a standard that others try to reach.
This is where we keep the Sony.
Tradition of excellence.
As an art form, television should move you.
Creates a picture so lifelike. Design and engineering. It's hard to tell the difference between the Trinitron. The one and only.
For decades, the Sony Trinitron was a household name. Breaking technical and design barriers time and time again to become the very pinnacle of home theater and television technology. But owning a Trinitron was more than just owning a good TV, because the very name was synonymous with perfection and quality. It stood as a badge of honor, announcing to the world that its owner respects the highest achievements in technology, appreciates the very finest details of design, and is willing to stop at no end to achieve perfection. With that same spirit of excellence, performance, and design, we present the Triniphase.
Hi, I'm Jamie from Supercool Pedals, and I'm thrilled to be introducing the 10th pedal in the Supercool lineup, the Triniphase. And to help me best show off this pedal, I'm going to be joined by my appropriately themed band, Color TV in Every Room. So give a big Supercool welcome to Mr. Ty Timbers on bass and organ, and Sir Brandon Root on the drums. The Triniphase is an all-analog, OTA-based, multi-stage phaser that delivers rich, classic phaser sounds, and beyond. It's been carefully designed to provide a simple and intuitive interface that enables you to craft some of the subtlest or wildest modulation effects that you can imagine. But before we get into the Triniphase specifically, let's take a quick look at what a phaser effect actually is. It starts with creating a duplicate of the input signal. Then specific notches of frequencies are created, which then move up and down the frequency spectrum and blend with the unaffected signal, creating a swooshing effect as these added frequencies go in and out of phase with the original. That's just the basics, and the Triniphase creates some new and wild sounds by controlling the number of frequencies being swept, the behavior of the sweep, and more. So let's check out the controls offered on the Triniphase itself. The controls are separated into two sides, the dials on the left and the red, green, and blue buttons on the right. As you may or may not know, TVs, old and new, create their images by blending red, green, and blue pixels in different combinations to create different colors, which is fitting because in the case of the Triniphase, selecting different combinations of these colors will create vastly different responses and effects as indicated by their corresponding LEDs. But more on those later. First, the knobs. The rate knob simply controls the speed of the modulation, and I designed it with much wider range than you normally find on phaser effects, because I always want a pedal to go a little bit further than they usually do, so you can always get into some weird, noisy territory. The RESO knob controls the overall effect intensity. It controls how much of the modulated signal is recycled within the circuit, sending the modulated signal back into itself, which acts as a kind of resonation, depending on the type of effect you've crafted with the RGB buttons. It can help create subtler or more intense results. Now onto the RGB buttons. The red button controls the number of phase frequencies, or stages, that the effect uses. With the light on, it's a 4-stage phaser, similar to the sound of the classic MXR Phase 90 or EHX Small Stone, and has a super smooth and telltale sound. And that's most of what we've been hearing on this demo so far. With the red light off, the Triniphase goes through 8 stages of phase and frequency modulation, which creates a much more intensely voiced effect with deeper and more complex resonation. And you'll also hear that there's some pitch modulation that starts happening at the more intense speeds of the 8-stage. But we'll also come back to this a little bit later on. The green button controls the length of the frequency sweep, specifically cutting off the lowest half of the modulation cycle, leaving a tighter and faster modulation rate that focuses on those higher frequency swoosh sounds. I find that this new and subtler modulation range is a great way to tame the more pronounced 8-stage phase mode. And by finding a balance, you can craft some really uniquely voiced vintage and organic sounding modulations. And by getting into some of that faster rate pitchy territory, you can even get that swirly vibrato chorus univibey sound. The blue button simply controls whether the dry, unaffected signal is in the mix or not. So when the button is on, you're hearing both the unaffected and modulated signal mixed together, which leads to more pronounced phase effects. But if you turn the switch off, you hear only the modulated signal, which has some interesting implications and sounds as a result. So I'm going to activate this mode starting with the RESO knob almost all the way up, and you'll hear the phasing effect still happening because of course the RESO knob is still sending the signal back into itself and creating the phase effect. But listen to what happens if I dial it back to minimum recycling of the phase effect. So now we get a pronounced vibrato-only effect that we can play with a little bit. And you can use the other mode buttons to control this and get some interesting pitch modulations. And this also enables one of my favorite, very specific sounds that you can get with the Triniphase. If you shorten the length on 4-stage mode and max out the RESO knob, you can get a really cool formant-like voice effect. And just because I like noise, here's one of my last favorite stupid little sound explorations that you can get from the Triniphase. Shorten the length in 8-stage mode and max out your rate into borderline self-oscillation, and now you have a stupid little ring mod effect that is arguably useless, but kind of fun. There's a whole world of sounds and colors to discover with the Triniphase, and it would take ages to explore them all here, but these were just some of my favorite settings that I've been playing with, and I can't wait to hear what you and others come up with too. The Triniphase is now available for purchase directly from our website or from our awesome dealers and partners both in-store and online. And if you liked some of the songs that you heard from the house band today, give us a follow. We are Color TV in every room on Instagram and all the socials. And we just so happen to have a brand new EP that's out now on all streaming services, and we'd love for you to check it out. Thank you so much for watching and joining us today. Remember to like and subscribe to all things Supercool, and it's not just a phase, it's a Triniphase.